Welcome back, folks. Today I have some amazing Gothic Remake news because yesterday Alchemy Interactive posted a new update and some news regarding the game where they showcase the combat changes since August of 2025 with the latest build of the game, which they have shown being the October of 2025, so 1 month ago. Now in this update they go through all of the combat changes from the actual fluidity of the combat, combos, knocking down enemies, locking on camera and so on. And to be honest, you'll see once we go through all of these videos that these changes are very much welcome because, again, as I said, during the demo, one of the things that the community was talking a lot about, and I also talked about in my previous video, was that the combat itself was feeling a little bit clunky. It was slow, it was sluggish, and it didn't really feel that responsive when you were fighting certain enemies, and I was worried how is that going to look like once we start fighting even tougher enemies like, for example, shadow beasts, various orcs, or even people from the different camps which have better armor, which we all know is going to be a little bit tricky to fight them, especially early on in the game. So we're gonna be going through all of the changes they posted here, but before it, let's see what they wrote. So they said this: "Hello Gothic fans, today we wanted to take the time to talk about combat in Gothic 1 Remake. Since we first showed the game at Gamescom and gave you the Naira's prologue, we got a lot of feedback, especially about combat. In general, the combat is mainly inspired by the original Gothic game. We chose this deliberately and didn't want to copy a combat system from an existing game like many sword fighting games do. Even though nowadays a lot of players are familiar with such systems, we wanted to deliver a feeling that goes back to the actual sword fighting where you can choose the direction of your attack. The combat in Gothic is very complex. It features a lot of different close combat weapon types, and our goal is that every weapon type will look and feel a little different. Also, many combat abilities change depending on a progression, as do animations and timings based on your mastery level. That is to say that combat is a massive feature for us. Early in development, we established a team of designers, animators, and programmers that only work on combat itself. In that team, we iterate quickly over timings and combat feel. Usually we are happy with certain feeling, we make the final animation by motion capturing an actor who is good with sword fighting, but enough of the preface. In your feedback and the conversation we had in person, it became clear that certain aspects need improvement. Some of those we knew about and had on the roadmap anyhow, but some others we didn't have on the radar yet. Initially, our plan was to be fully done with combat at the time of Gamescom 2025, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So let's go into details of changes we've done. So one of the first videos we do see here is that they have shortened the build-up animation timings. Also, in the August 2025 version, there was a small delay stop when you transition from movement to an attack. This has now been eliminated. Now, if we take a look at this first video where Nameless is fighting a shadow beast, clearly we can see that the actual combat animation is a lot faster than we've had in the demo. This is one of the, I think, one of the things I talked about, as I said previously, where it was sort of like too slow, especially fighting against stronger enemies. Now, of course, in all of that, you have to take into account the actual mastery level, because if you never played Gothic, the Nameless hero, once you start playing the game, is going to be very much unskilled with every single weapon you wield. So that means at the start of the game, you won't know the combos. Your character does not know how to properly fight with a sword, and you will have to train with other trainers throughout the map and the game itself, where your mastery is going to increase, you're going to get more animations and obviously bigger combos which you will be able to utilize. So even though, like in this specific video, they showed like combat with the mastery level a bit up, so this is not the starting animation itself, it does feel faster and it does feel a lot more responsive, which is definitely a good addition to this game. And at least from, this footage that we have seen, it looks a lot more precise, which is very important in these sort of games, because when it comes to Gothic, every single one of your attack does matter, because enemies you're gonna be encountering are going to be very tough to fight, and they're going to take a huge chunk of your HP, especially early on where you don't even have a proper armor or a good sword with like good, you know, damage output. Of course, keep in mind that these showcases were done on a controller. You can see in the, you know, corner itself what button is being pressed. Again, we don't know how is that going to work on the keyboard and mouse, but you know, it should be relatively similar to the sort of keybinds we're gonna be pressing overall, like similar maybe like it was with the demo with the left and right mouse click. So in a nutshell, having this faster animation is a lot better, and I really do enjoy what they've done here. Now the next video was about combos. So combos are now only triggered when you press the correct attack button and not just any attack button, because in the demo we have seen you can just spam the button, and you know, at least in the demo, Nairas is gonna be just swinging the sword and he's going to do a full transition of, you know, that combo itself. So now that has been changed, so you actually see in the bottom that different button is being pressed, so that ultimately means, for example, that you have to really time your attacks in order for that combo to go through. I do enjoy that, because if anything, you know, sometimes you don't really want to do a certain combo, maybe you just want to do 1 or 2 slashes and then back out of combat, especially if you're fighting more enemies, especially human enemies, because they can be very tricky to fight in Gothic in general. And also, speaking of the combo itself, again, with the faster animation, it feels a lot more smoother and a lot more, how would I say, natural in that sense. I also do enjoy that they added some idling animations in a sense when it comes like Nameless Hero holding a sword, you know, doing a little rotation with it. That part I really do like. Now for the next one, we also have the interrupting buildup. Although, keep in mind that they said here on levels higher than untrained, so starting skill, you can now interrupt with a dodge or a block during build-up or recovery from the hit. This wasn't really the case in the demo, and the problem with that is if you get hit once and you get stun locked, there's a chance you're going to get the same problem that, for example, Gothic 3 had whenever people first encountered a boar in that game. If you don't know, like, monsters in Gothic 3 were really fast attacking, so once they stun lock you into a certain, like, animation, you were pretty much going to be, you know, defeated. So here you can see that it's being properly added, so now the build-up itself is going to be a lot smoother within that animation transition. As you go for an attack, someone hits you and you don't want to be hit again, so what you're going to do is you're going to back out of that attack, or you're going to engage in the block again for a faster transition. As I said, this is going to work really well against enemies which are armed with swords, or for example goblins like they've shown in this particular clip. And also it does come down with scavengers as well, because that block animation is going to be very important if you want to save up on, you know, going through health potions and so on, because yet again, as I said, depending on who you're gonna be fighting, if you are hit in Gothic, they just, you know, do a lot of damage, so you really have to pay close attention to that. Another change is that dodging can now be triggered while blocking, which wasn't the case before, and I do enjoy that, again, because it just gives you more opportunity to, you know, block the enemy, avoid the enemy, and sort of win that fight, which again also makes sense from the, like, just the, you know, fighting perspective, because it makes no sense for you to be able to block and not being able to move. Now again, the case with the original Gothic games was very particular in that case, the way you were defending, the way you were swinging the sword, and I do like that they actually take inspiration from the original game. They don't want to, as they said, copy different styles, which is fine in my opinion, and I'm glad they're iterating on it so that you can have actually like these extra animations on top of it, so this is also a welcoming addition. Another huge change, which I definitely do like, and probably one of my favorites here, is that the camera to lock on camera has been improved. So as you can see here, and probably remember from the demo itself, is that once you lock onto an enemy, the FOV, or well, the entire, just the screen itself, is really going to shrink and go into close-up, which can again be problematic if you're fighting multiple enemies or you're fighting bigger enemies themselves. So now the new combat camera is a little bit wider, and it gives you enough room to maneuver around your environment and see if there's any other danger around you, and ultimately quickly, also have a better view of when you're going to defend against a certain attack, and locking on and probably switching between different enemies with a lock on is going to transition a lot smoother, because again, that field of view is going to be extended and it's not going to be really in that close-up. Also, the foot sliding animation has been replaced with a proper animation, so as you can see here, every time Nameless goes forward with the attack, he basically slides, which, you know, is not really that enjoyable from the gameplay perspective. It feels kind of cheap. So now you can see that once the Nameless goes for an attack, there is going to be a proper step with the foot. So the footwork is going to work properly, and it's all going to look a little bit more natural and just overall better when it comes to the, you know, quality of combat and quality of the game itself. Also, they added finishing attacks that complete combo chains and can apply a knockdown on the enemy. I think from just the fighting perspective, this is really important, because if you time your combos well and you're successful in it, there should be some sort of a reward for doing so. And in this case, if you do a little combo chain and you do it correctly, it's going to, again, as we've seen here, apply a knockdown on the enemy. So it's going to give you maybe 2-second, 3-second opportunity to strike again, or at least maybe back out, drink a potion, depending on how your combat is going on. So another huge plus for it. But also keep in mind that those specific attacks from different enemies, including various animals, monsters and humans, can also knock down you. So you have to pay close attention to what the enemy is doing, because, well, if you can apply that and it's going to work in your favor, if you're not careful and you're not really blocking those attacks, or you're not dodging properly, the knockdown is going to come to you and you're going to be in a big issue, because if you're knocked down again, it's going to take, I think, 2-3 seconds until Nameless is up on his feet, and then you can continue fighting. I don't know like what the enemies are gonna be doing that. In this video, they sort of like just stay in one place until you get up, but again, this could be sort of tied to this demo which they're showing here. But overall, really good, because, you know, there is this reward and also punishment scenario depending on your fighting style. And for the end, they also reworked the master level two-handed sword animations. So we can see a little bit of a difference between August and October build for combat itself, where it sort of feels like if you have the two-handed mastery and it's obviously really high, the Nameless is going to, I think, sort of swing with a little bit more precision and a little bit more technique, because I feel like in August 2025, even though like your mastery may have been up, I still felt like Nameless was sort of swinging this two-hander a little bit sluggish and not sort of thinking about his defense or the way, for example, his hands or footwork might be exposed to enemy attack. So now it feels faster, it feels a little bit, how would I say, again, more organized and a little bit better in terms of like just how Nameless attacks and recovers from that attack overall, which makes everything more natural. And it also gives you like a proper reward for training up your, you know, depending on like if you're gonna be going with one-hander, two-hander, whatever, it gives you a proper reward for it, because you feel like Nameless has been training a lot and he finally mastered the sword fighting. So this ultimately means that those attacks are going to come with a lot more, as I said, precision and a lot more strength and a little bit less clunkiness the way like the sword is being swinged around. Because again, look at the August 2025, it just feels like anybody would be swinging that sword, like just swing wherever you want. But now it feels even a pirouette, which is again funny, but it's kind of cool that it's, you know, included here, and looks better. Now for the end, they also said this: most of these changes were already fully implemented in the playable demo that was shown at PGA in Poland. Additionally, we are looking into which attacks can be blocked and which ones are not blockable, and an ongoing effort is to further improve the AI in all phases from taunting to actual combat. We are eager to hear your thoughts and treat this always as a valuable input for our design and implementation. We are still working on further improvements and tweaks, and we hope we gave you some better insights into what's happening in the combat area. So overall, my humble opinion about all of this is that I am really enjoying the way they are listening to the community feedback. I've been telling people in my previous videos that, again, like the devs are listening. Like, of course, this is not going to be one-to-one remake, which they already stated that they want to give their own version of how they feel like the remake should be done in its sense. But the majority of the game, like when it comes to like quests and the way like the camp is done, the colony is done, like going from from the old camp, new camp, swamp camp, the overall layout is still going to stay similar to what we, got, to know from the original Gothic 1 game. Them actually fixing this before the release itself is really a welcoming thing, and I think for majority of people who are getting into this game for the first time is going to be enjoyable, because again they're going to have some sort of a, how would I say, options, the way they fight, the way they block, the way they encounter each enemy, and the way they approach each and every single encounter in this game in terms of like who are you gonna be fighting, when, and so on. And it also seems that majority of people that have been commenting and talking about this, at least looking at these changes, is that they enjoy what they are seeing here. And to be honest, again, it is really nice that developers have done this, but they're still gonna be doing, as they say, iterations here of what can be blocked, what cannot be blocked, and the overall AI. So majority of that obviously we're going to see once the game is finally out. I mean, these are good changes, but how do they feel like in practice? Well, we have to wait to play the game to properly see it. But if you ask me, again, very much welcoming change, and I'm really now getting excited for the remake itself, which is dropping in the Q1 of 2026. They repeated that again. We still don't have a specific release date on when is it coming in Q1, but at least, so far it doesn't seem there is going to be any sort of delays. We don't know, but it seems majority of the stuff is done and they're going to be ready for that release in 2026. But again, you let me know down below in the comments, what do you think about all of this? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more. Also check us out on Twitter and Discord, and huge thanks to my Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and I will see you guys very soon in a new video. Bye bye.